A day after embarking on strike over exposure to COVID-19 and poor welfare, staff of the National Identity Management Commission call off strike after meeting with federal government delegation. Nigeria Labour Congress warns Kano state government against reverting to old minimum wage attributed to the impact of COVID-19 and insecurity. Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I am Terry Ikumi. Labour unions have reacted to publications circulating that the Kano state government is set on reversing from payment of the current minimum wage of 30,000 naira to the old wage of 18,000 naira. The Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress, as well as the leadership of the Joint Negotiating Council, says other states such as Borno, Katsina, Lagos, among others, who had issues with COVID-19 and security challenges, did not reduce workers' salary, and goes on to say that it is now more than ever that the state government needs to support workers and their families to scale through the hard times. The unions further say that if there is further deduction, severance or foul play on salaries under whatever excuse, the Labour Congress would be left with no other alternative than to take appropriate industrial action to seek redress. And now to our major story tonight. Yesterday, the 7th of January, staff of the National Identity Management Commission embarked on a strike, which comes just weeks to the deadline for registration of SIM cards with a national identification number as directed by the federal government. The reasons for the strike, according to the staff, are inadequate measures and work equipment to protect staff from COVID-19, poor salary structure, among others. They also claim that some of their members have contracted the virus and were neglected by the management of the commission. And they are worried about the continuous breach of the COVID-19 protocols, considering the large crowds that continue to show up for registration. Another reason for the strike is poor remuneration. Some of the staff say they are poorly paid and the staff welfare is nothing to be proud of. Now, a meeting was held today between government and the striking workers, and after that, the strike was called off and enrollment will now resume. But for many Nigerians, why go through such a demanding process during a pandemic? Well, my guest tonight on Politics Today is the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Ali Issa Pantami. He joins us virtually. Welcome to Politics Today, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much for having me on this virtual platform.
Honorable Minister, can we get a quick update on the meeting with the union members of the National Identity Management Commission, which led to them calling off the strike action just about 24 hours after it commenced?
So thank you very much for extending the invitation to me. And secondly, I appreciate the question you have presented as the first one for our engagement. Firstly, the issue of strike is still between the management of a Nigerian National Identity Management Commission on one hand and the union on the other. The issue has not been officially escalated to the ministry supervising the commission. I only heard of the strike yesterday morning, and immediately I personally went to NIMC and I met the management team. They said, please, we are pleading with you to allow the management to meet with the union and they will be able to resolve within their own level without escalating to the ministry. So I just wish them all the best and I left the commission. And so they met the union without involving the ministry because our agreement yesterday, they will involve the ministry if reconciliation is beyond what they can afford. But if they will be able to resolve, they can do that within the management level without escalating to the ministry. So to be fair with you, this issue has been resolved between the management of NIMC on one hand and the union on the other without involving the ministry in any way. So only the DG notified me a few hours ago that they had a meeting and they agreed to suspend the strike. So this is what actually happened.
I'd like to clarify from you where you were not at that meeting, but did you send a representative to the meeting?
I did not send anybody because they said they want it to be resolved in-house. So because of this, we couldn't send anybody to represent the ministry. And the issue was resolved between the management of NIMC on one hand and the union on the other, without involving any third party. So we were not involved in that because it's only at the management meeting.
Now, while you say that, which may sound understandable, there are some issues that I think are of concern to the ministry as well. Issues raised by the striking workers. One of them is the large crowds that have continued to gather at NIMC offices seeking registration process. I don't know what kind of agreement was reached on that, because the staff claimed that the crowds exposed them to COVID-19.
So thank you very much for this question. And in this regard, I believe ministry has something to say. Firstly, if you could recall, during our ministerial task force of linking NIN number to SIM, we, NCC and NIMC, issued a statement jointly. Part of the resolution of that meeting was all COVID-19 protocols must be respected during registration. And what we did at the Ministerial Task Force, we came up with a booking system in which citizens are not allowed in any way to go there and start fighting to get registered. You only go there, register your name and go. If you wish, you can text message the commission and they will allocate a time for you. If you come, you don't need to spend 10 minutes. They will take your biometric, your image and everything, and you go. But the problem is, you know how our citizens are, and we need attitudinal change. We announced this in television, including Channel Television, announced that all the process must be under COVID-19 guidelines. But citizens will go there. Their names are not in any way part and parcel of those to be captured, but they will go and stay at the gate. If you ask them to leave, they will not. And even security agencies had been there. They had been pleading with them, but they will not go. And they will stay there. And all the crowd you have been seeing in Abuja, for example, or Lagos, 90% of them, or even 95% of them, were not part of those invited to be captured. They only go there and stand outside. And you will clearly see in some places, the gates are locked up, but they will stay outside the gate. They are neither admitted in and they neither leave. So this is the problem we are having. So it has nothing to do with the union or with the commission, but rather it is with the citizens that we need to change our attitude. Because what we have is booking system. In booking system, you don't need to go there and stay and say, okay, let me wait for my time to come. It doesn't require that in any way. So, and I think this is what is required to change from our citizens.
Let me come in here. You make it sound so easy, but you have put a deadline of a couple. It was initially 2 weeks, and it's now been extended by 6 weeks. How do you expect the large number of Nigerians who are unregistered not to gather with the deadline that you have put?
Thank you very much, my brother, for asking this question, but point of correction. The earlier deadline, it was quoted by many nationals wrongly without making reference to the initial one. What if you go online and check, you can Google it and see. It was announced since February 2020. And I think the first day that policy was announced in this country was on 4th February 2020. And it was transmitted to the Nigerian Communications Commission and NIMC then. However, at that time, NIMC was not under our supervision. So it was announced that each and every citizen who owns a SIM card, from that time, February 2020 to December 2020, he should ensure that he obtains his national identity number and submit same to the mobile network operators. Go online and search. And in that statement, we even mentioned that government was looking at the possibility of restricting the total number of SIMs to be attached to each and every citizen. And we even say most probably around 3, which has been reviewed now to around 7 in number. Considering that beyond phone, we need data, we need artificial intelligence facilities and many more. So it was announced in February. Citizens, instead of going to obtain the national identity number and submit to mobile network operators, they failed to do that. They were only debating about why 3 SIMs, why not 4, why not 5? No, 3 is okay. We can even use 2. Why not 1? They were debating. But it was announced then that from February 2020 to December 2020, obtain your digital ID and submit to your operator. They couldn't comply, and it was announced. And what government needs to do is to announce the policy we did. While the parastatals, they are mandated to keep in touch with citizens as part of their strategy for implementation and the mobile network operators. If you Google, you will see. So saying that the deadline is 2 weeks, this is wrong. That 2 weeks was only to remind the citizens that the earlier directives of February to December was still valid. So you must comply. So this is what happened. But you can Google and see it is there online,
for many people,
including electronic media.
Honorable Minister, for many people, beyond the deadline that you have put, the NIMC staff themselves have also complained that they lack the adequate equipment to effectively meet up with this date. Does that not worry you as well?
Firstly, what I want to say to you here, if they lack any equipment, what they need to do is to officially notify the federal government. NIMC Union has never written to the ministry, and the commission has never written to the ministry even once that we require this facility or this that we fail to produce. It has never happened. No single letter has come to the federal government from either NIMC or from the union saying that we need this and these facilities. It has never come to my attention, number one. Number two, only 2 months ago,
have you carried out
today.
Have you carried out a tour of the facilities at the NIMC offices to be sure that they have adequate equipment instead of waiting for them? Because you have set a deadline and you expect that NIMC would meet with that deadline.
Yeah, the deadline was announced in February 2020, and the initial time is February 2020, and the closing or the end of the deadline is December 2020. Within 10 months, I said to you, nobody has ever complained to us in any way that we needed this facility. And I granted an audience to the union 2 months ago in my office, where we spent more than an hour. They complained to me about their salary. And I even told them that even before you came here to complain about the salary, I personally wrote a letter to Minister of Finance and other institutions to see how we can review your remunerations. So because of this, you come here only to encourage me to redouble my effort. But even before coming here, I have already written a letter officially in which the Minister of Finance has endorsed the letter.
Honorable Minister, I was very specific. I wanted to find out from you if you had taken your time to visit the offices of NIMC or had interactions with them to confirm that they had the facilities to carry and equipment to carry out this exercise. I'll also remind you that as at February 2020, NIMC did say that it had about 1,000 centers to carry out this registration process. And that was when the issue of JAMB was coming on. Do you think that NIMC has the facilities and equipment now to register as many Nigerians as are required?
Thank you very much. Firstly, you asked me whether I have visited NIMC or not. I can tell you within 1 week that NIMC was transferred to our Ministry for Supervision, I visited NIMC and I visited all their infrastructure in the headquarters, and I engaged the entire management of NIMC for over 2 hours about all their complaints. Secondly, I asked NIMC to conduct an assessment of all their facilities and their gaps and what they need immediately. They sent a report to me at that time that what they needed was more of a world-class data center so that they can have multiple data centers as backup. That has been approved by the federal government of Nigeria. A memo was presented before the Federal Executive Council, and it was approved.
Let's take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Please stay with us.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Politics Today. I'm speaking with the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Ali Issa Pantami, on the National Identification Number registration process, which is ongoing. Honorable Minister, let me ask you this. You've seen the crowds at NIMC offices nationwide and calls for readjustment or reconsiderations. Why has the ministry remained adamant on the NIN registration despite worries about COVID-19 infections? And I also remind you that the PTF has hinted on a possible lockdown considering the increased rate of infections in the country?
Firstly, as the interviewer, before I answer your question, I would also ask you a question. What is the position of obtaining national identity number based on Nigerian law?
I don't understand the question, Honorable Minister, but I think that it's very important that you respond to my question on the COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges which Nigerians are facing, considering that we are in a pandemic.
Each and every question you ask, I have an answer, but I want you to answer the question first. What is the position of obtaining national identity number based on the Nigerian law?
I think you should tell us that, because there have been some rhetorics in the public space as to this, and some have questions if this is actually a digital process that you've taken us through, if Nigeria is actually heading in a digital direction. So
if you don't know, go to NIMC Act 2007, the law establishing NIMC, since you remain silent and you couldn't answer my question. If you look at Section 18, the law that was approved 13 years ago said that from the time the law was approved and the commission was established, each and every citizen was given only 60 days, as long as he is up to 18 years of age, to go to any NIMC and obtain his own national identity number. From that time to date, how many years? Why people fail to comply with the law for more than 10 years that they must go and obtain? And if at least a child is born, he was given only 60 days for his father to go and obtain that registration for him. This is what the Nigerian law says. Secondly, for you to say,
I think the people who just a second, I think the people who posed that law did not consider a pandemic. Honorable Minister, we are in a pandemic, and I don't want to believe that you have ignored the calls.
If you are ignorance of the law is not an excuse to you or to me. What I'm saying, this pandemic started only in around January, February, in Nigeria around March, more than 9 months ago. Why we failed to comply with the law for more than 10 years, it is only now you are talking. Secondly, for you to say that ministry is adamant of that, this is the highest level of injustice. Why? I mentioned to you, look at the statement of 15 December 2020, signed by NCC and NIMC. They said each and every citizen going for the registration must comply with federal government directives, must comply with presidential task force. It was clearly stated. And I went to the registration center last week. I was interviewed by the reporter of channels there. He met me there. Based on my interview with him, look at the video. All the guidelines of presidential task force were respected in NIMC headquarters. I was there. We even interviewed Nigerians there. Do you have any complaint? They say no complaint. Did anybody ask you money? They say no. Are you allowed to enroll without respecting the COVID-19 protocols? They say no. All the people we interviewed there, the videos are available. Your reporter was there. I granted interview to him. Nobody complained.
Let me ask you a question, Honorable Minister. Let me ask you a question from what you have just said.
Institution that is not a law enforcement agency about the failure of citizens when they fail to comply. Go to our.
I'd like to ask you this very important question based on what you have said.
So just it has nothing to do with either NIMC or NCC or the federal government. But our own responsibility is to set the guidelines.
Just a second, Honorable Minister, just a second, please. What happens if a second lockdown is imposed? What happens to the registration process?
If the second lockdown is enforced, then the Ministerial Task Force, including NIMC, NCC, and all mobile network operators will come down and sit immediately and review, because the task force meets usually within 1 week. So when there is second lockdown, we are citizens. We must respect federal government directives, and we support the same government. So when there is any announcement, we come back to the drawing board immediately and review the process and see what we have achieved so far and what are the challenges ahead. So because of this, when that is announced, as federal government institution, we serve the same government, so we don't have any problem. Now it has not been announced.
I think many Nigerians.
These guidelines are to be respected, and we are respecting the guidelines, and we encourage our citizens to change their attitude. For example, let me tell you, few weeks ago, I traveled outside Nigeria to one country. I have not seen a single citizen of that country without face mask. since they only announced it once and everybody complied. But in Nigeria, it has been announced. Go to all places, you will see people without face masks. So what we need is attitudinal change. Laws cannot implement themselves. We as citizens, we must be law-abiding and we must respect federal government laws and policies because they are for our own good.
But, Honorable Minister, some Nigerians have complained about the non-digital nature of the registration process, which you had talked about earlier. Some have said that, can we clearly say that NIMC is doing a digital registration if people have to appear in person to do this registration process?
Thank you, my brother. Firstly, whoever complains, then for sure he has not been following the transformation we have been bringing. Firstly, we develop an app. You go online into Google, you will see it. That app, as long as you have your NIMC number, you only download it without visiting any office in Nigeria. You will be able to link up to 7 SIM numbers to only one. I have already downloaded the app and I launched the app and I have already linked some of my numbers here immediately. So this is the part of
I'm actually talking about getting the number itself. Getting the number itself.
I am coming. Listen, digitalization is an ongoing process. This is what I'm telling you. This application we have launched, it was only after we have done. By 3 days later, Saudi government announced a similar application, and the entire country was celebrating that Saudi government has digitalized digital ID. In that application we have already launched. If you go there, if you have your number, you can download your digital identity card. ID digitally. You don't need to print it anymore. You can link your numbers without visiting anybody. Secondly, when it comes to the process, there are issues that they are anywhere in the world. You must go and do them physically. This one, when it comes to NIMC, you download the form if you like virtually. You can complete the form virtually without visiting any office. And number 3, if you like, you can submit the form virtually. But there are things that require you physically, like your biometric. You cannot submit your biometric and to be verified and accredited without seeing you physically. We have our standard of capturing your image according to NIMC Act 2007 under section 20, under section 14 and 15. You must go there so that it will tally with our own standard. So because of biometric and few other things, even if you submit your form online, you must come forward to present your biometric. And this is what requires you to do physically.
All right.
And the process, and I was in NIMC office, as you asked me, for supervision. I discovered that citizens have been registered. Each person takes around 3 to 5 minutes to complete his registration and go. As long as you have completed
I think our time is up at this point.
3 to 5 minutes, you can do go and go.
Honorable Minister, I'd like to say thank you so much. There's so much to talk about as far as this NIN is concerned, but our time is up. I thank you for finding time to come speak with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I most appreciate it. Take care, please. Bye.
Well, that's Politics Today. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy the rest of it. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.